evening, everybody, and welcome to RAMP, Real Access Motivates Progress, our weekly Wednesday live podcast. This will be our last podcast for the year, so I will not be able to see any of you until the new year, 2021, and we're praying that 2021 is going to be a much better year than 2020. Although 2020 has been very good to me, we are ready to move on to the next era. But I have a great show for you tonight. I have the Wilks with me tonight. They wrote a book, A Lifetime of Lessons, a parent of special needs child. So welcome, Laurie and Brian, and I'm so honored to have you as part of my show tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Tina.
Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how this all came to play?
Sure. So my wife and I, Laurie, had a special needs child as our third child, and in most families that doesn't happen. And we can normally talk to other people about what their kids are like because they're going through the same things as we are. And when you have a special needs child, you kind of have an overflow of information. It's a bit of a tsunami that hits you. And we had kind of scoured online for books and information as to some type of resource that could be made available to us to learn about this lifestyle, and we couldn't find one. And so I decided to write one. Never wrote a book before, but I researched, and as you know, I mean, you're on top of your research. And what happens is you learn things that you have those aha moments that you can usually share with other people that could literally change their lives. And that's what the premise of the book is, to get it out there, to help other people out, and to just better the lives of everyone that has a special need or a handicapped child, whatever you want to phrase it as.
Yeah, it was a great book. I read it finally. I got to finish it today with everything else I got going on. It is a good book. Laurie, what do you think about all this, and how did this all become about to you?
Well, I think by default, because I live it every day. And as he said, it's, not something that someone chooses. It's something you're kind of thrust into. I love being a mom. It's what I am. That's my job. I wouldn't change it for the world. But it is difficult, and it's hard every day, and it's different every day because you never know what you're going to get what's up to. It changes all the time. Yeah. So when he says you got to be flexible in the book, you have to be flexible.
Oh, I totally agree with you because you guys know my story that just 6 years ago, I walked into a 10-minute surgery and woke up with no use or feeling of my legs. So I ended up in this wonderful disabled community in the matter of 10 minutes. And my life changed forever. And again, there is no resources out there for somebody who's thrown into something like this. So having a book is wonderful. But let's go back to the beginning a little bit. Derek being your third child, how was it different, or did you know ahead of time, or is this something you found out after birth? Like, tell me how the process went.
It was after normal pregnancy. It ended up being a C-section, but tons of people have C-sections every day. There's never any complications, and this was definitely genetic something that happened. So he was having seizures. We didn't know they were seizures, but he was doing some strange things that I had never seen. And at 3 months, I was like, okay, something's not right. Went to the doctors, and basically they were like, I think he's having seizures. You need to go to a neurologist. And we went to a great neurologist here in Warwick, Rhode Island. I don't even know if he's practicing anymore. I haven't heard from him in a long time, but he put us in touch with Dr. Goodrich in New York at Montefiore Medical Center, and it turns out he had craniosynostosis. His bones were fused too early, and his brain was growing abnormally and didn't have any place to go. So at 6 months old, went to New York. They did a whole cranial reconstruction, and supposedly he was only supposed to be 3 months behind, but that wasn't the case.
Is that ever usually
but that was
the case?
Start. No.
So during all of the ultrasounds or sonograms or the pregnancy or anything, none of this came to play, or there was no abnormalities or anything. So this was something that you didn't find out till he was 6 months old.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
So
he was
Brian,
a little misshapen when he came out, but that wasn't unusual.
Yeah. Brian, how was this for you? Like I said, being your third child and being a dad, you know what I mean, going through all this. How did you deal with all of that?
So it was exceptionally difficult. I was fortunate to see all three of my kids born, and you could tell, as Laurie alluded to earlier, that was her second child. And normally, as is the case, a woman will pass, the second child much easier than the first, and he just wasn't coming out. And we didn't know it at the time, but his head was literally 95% of the size of an adult. That's why he wasn't coming out. They had to take him C-section.
Right.
And when I saw him come out, I'm like, oh, there's something clearly wrong here. And what I allude to in my book is my first two children. What are the first words out of the pediatrician's mouth? It's 10 fingers, 10 toes, and it's signifying that the child is, and I hate using the term, but normal. And when I saw him, it was like, oh my God, and he, kind of, looked at me and said, yeah, there's something wrong. And of course, we find out much later what had happened. As Laurie said, the craniosynostosis was one of his, issues that he had, and so my heart sank. We knew we were going to be in for a fight, but luckily Laurie's strong, I'm strong. We came together. We went down to New York. Great story. We're down there for 7 days only and came home. They literally took his top half of his skull apart and put it back together. In a week, he's home. And Laurie ended up getting stuck in an elevator that had until the injury over there in New York. And I had to come back. I had my own business. I was down there for the first 3 or 4 days. And we kind of set our life tone going forward where I would be the primary breadwinner and she would be the primary parent, only because I could make money and she's way better of a parent than I am. So it really worked out well. So that's in the book as well, where you really have to walk the path together hand in hand and figure out what's right and what you do best and just do that.
Right. I mean, everybody has their strong suits. But before we get into the book, Laurie, I would love you to tell me and tell everybody a little bit about Derek. I mean, this whole story and this all came about because of Derek, and he's such a handsome young man. Tell everybody about Derek, about what life was like growing up and how old he is. And, let us into his life.
Okay. Well, that's almost a hard question to answer, because when I tell you that it changes every day, it's always something different. He was quiet. He was quiet little baby. He was good. But seizures, you never know what kind of form they're going to take. So, he might be fine one day and the next day all hell breaks loose and you don't know what to do. There's been plenty of times when he maybe isn't feeling good and has, hit me right across the face or scratched me in the arms or, bit my hand. Few and far in between, but I know there's a lot of people that do go through that. And every time it happened, I was shocked because I was like, not be my wonderful, handsome, young little man. But as he grew, that left. So now it's hard because he's nonverbal. I see him in there looking at me, and I know he's in there, and I know there's a connection. And if he could talk, he has a ton of things that he'd love to say. And that's really hard for me as a mom, living with a silent child, because I have to pay a lot of attention because he won't talk. So do you have to go to the bathroom? Are you hungry? Are you hurting? Are you in pain? So many different things go along with it. But he's great. He has a great sense of humor. He will, if I put my shoes on wrong, he knows. If I put his shoes on wrong, he knows. He laughs. It's like, you put my shoes on wrong. If I, drop something, he thinks that's hysterical. Where he gets that humor from, I don't know. It's inherent in him. But he's a really great kid. He's a wonderful young man. But throw the epilepsy and the nonverbal, the non-communication, it's hard. But again, as time went on, we have our own communication. We've learned how to talk to each other.
Right.
Yeah, it's difficult.
I can't imagine. How does his two siblings interact with him? How is that for them? Are they much older or younger? Well, obviously they're older because he was your third. But how do they interact?
Good. My son, he was in Florida for a little while, so he works. That's the problem as they got older, is that, they're either out of state or they're working their full-time jobs. So the interaction is less than what I would love, because I love to have my kids around me. But as they get here, they know over the time too how they have learned to communicate with Derek, because Derek doesn't have anything to offer them. So they have to come in to his space and, start something with him for him to react. Does that make sense? Because that's the only way I can think of getting into his world, because he's so sedate that unless you go to him and start something, he's not going to respond to you that much. He'll watch. He's a people watch. He loves to see what's going on around him, but you really have to get to him and start something.
How was it when they were younger growing up? How was it when they were younger growing up and interacting with each other, going through school and stages together?
Actually, it was great. It was better when they were little, because Derek was different than he is now. He was much more animated. He was more into playing with toys, because that stopped somewhere along the line and changed. So, and when they were children and small, there was less, what I'm looking for. I can't think of the word. They were more alike. That's the only thing I can think of, is that, the childlike play that they did, they could relate to each other more. And as they got older, I think they got a little farther apart, because now you have to try and relate in a different way. And the nonverbal, that's a tough one.
Yeah. He's a handsome young man, though. Let me tell you, he is just such a cutie. I love to see the pictures of him. So Brian, let's get into the book and talk to me about how this whole book came about, and how you started the process and how long the process took.
So it was a start and stop project from the get-go. I had an old boss who was, everybody should have a boss like this guy. He would just make sure you stayed on track and always did the right thing. And he just split it out one day, probably 4 years ago. Brian, he goes, after what you go through every day, he goes, and I've seen it firsthand. He's been over my house. He goes, you really need to write a book and let people know what's going on. And for 15 minutes, I told him he was crazy. And, stop it. I'm done. I'm not going to do this. He goes, you need to write a book. So I actually started writing it during Derek's second operation. It was the day after the Patriots came back from the Super Bowl. That's how I kind of quantify it against Atlanta in overtime, whatever day that was. And we were there for, I think it was another week we were there, if I'm not mistaken. And it poured out of me. I think I put down something like 14,000 words. I was there. It was therapeutic, the whole bit. And then life got in the way. And then COVID hits in March. And I was a salesman. They pulled us off the road. And I'm like, wow, what a great time to finish the book. So I did a bunch of research, and this is where my heart was broken, where I was researching, as Laurie said, through Montefiore Hospital with Dr. Goodrich. He did his surgeries on him, literally saved his life. And I pulled up the website for Montefiore, and there's Dr. Goodrich's picture on the cover. I'm like, oh, what did he do? And, he didn't do anything. COVID killed him. Unfortunately. And so his doctor that literally changed all of our lives perished from this disease. Montefiore Hospital was hit hard from the disease. And great little sidebar story to that was that when you write a book, you learn a lot about the technical aspect of writing it. I could write the book all over again if I wanted to, but the technical aspect would stop you cold in terms of what permission you need from certain parties about getting pictures and lyrics and so forth and so on. And the picture that you see on there is owned by Montefiore Hospital. I felt it was morally correct for me to call his wife or get in contact with her to see if I could use her husband's picture, which is on the screen. And she answered my phone call from a Rhode Island area code. She lived out in New York. And it was, I hadn't cried for a while before that. I cried that day when I got off the phone with her, because her husband was just, he separated successfully 7 sets of Siamese twins conjoined at the head. This guy has changed the lives of so many people. And so anyway, it was like, I literally mouthed the words. I won't tell you exactly what I said, but I was like, Brian, if you don't finish this book, you're a knucklehead. And so I just went just, it was full steam ahead. And I think I finished it in about 3 weeks, and then self-published through Outskirts. And my best friend, my longest tenured friend from school, did the cover for me. That's Laurie's picture that she took on the cover. It's unadulterated. It was a picture right through the RV we took at, I think it was at Valley Forge, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to who Derek is. You can look and see his eyes, but there's a little bit of trepidation in it. There's a little bit like, what's next? The colors match up wonderfully, and I'm not taking any credit for the cover work. That's all my friend and my wife that did all of that, and of course the good doctor next to him. So that's how it came about, and I'm proud of it. And the fact that, like I said, it can help so many people. It should have been done a long time ago by probably people who are better versed in this than me, but it needed to be done. And I'm glad that it's out there to help as many people as possible. And I'm very grateful for the audience that you provided for both of us to get on the show to promote this, to get it out there and get people. It needs a national platform, is what it needs. So I'm hoping that we can work towards that and get it out there. So this is a great start to it. Thank you.
It's a really great book. Tell everybody what's in the book, like what entails in the book. There are many different chapters in the book. I'm actually holding the book right now. But tell everybody a basic overview of what's in the book. Like, what can they expect to find from reading this book?
Sure, absolutely. So a lot of the things that people kind of take for granted in terms of what you expect from a person that isn't handicapped or has special needs, there's a bunch of information in there on Social Security, on ABLE accounts, on IEPs. There's a whole chapter devoted to finances in there because the finances change dramatically when you have a child. So let's go back to like the earliest part first. So you're probably going to deal with the IEP first on an initial basis chronologically. So you bring your child to school, and then you have a multiple set of choices. You can either bring it to the school of city or jurisdiction you live in and hope that they assimilate and do a good job. So if your child is mildly on the spectrum, say, that's probably a good call because you want them to assimilate, you want them to be social, and what better, setting than a school for kids being social, good and or bad. If your child is, on the other side of the spectrum, like ours is, he was, very severely handicapped with his physicality. And by that, I mean that his seizures would promote him literally passing out, standing, and then obviously falling down, which is not good. So we chose to go a different route and go to a separate school that's available that requires funding from both the city and the federal government. So that's in there. The choice, I kind of walk you down these paths. I don't make the choice for you. I give you the menu options. I tell you what we did, what worked extremely well for us, and what didn't work so well. So you can learn from our mistakes, and you can kind of take what we did and say, okay, this path worked for us. And then after the IEP, of course, the next step you're going to have is graduation. I did a little bit more research, and since I published the book, things have changed a little bit. But 21 is the range for most kids on a state level to graduate from school. On their 21st birthday, there you go. Derek's graduated right there, and it's an important day because he literally changes from childhood to adult. And I take you through that whole entire process, which is why an entire chapter was dedicated to that. And then another great story that I'd like to kind of bring about is we were at an autism walk in Goddard Park. They have it every year in April, local park in Rhode Island. And Representative Langevin, he's a congressman who was disabled himself. He's been in the wheelchair for a long time. The story I heard, and I hope I'm saying it the right way, is he was involved in a shooting. It was a stray bullet that hit him, and he was paralyzed. And so obviously he knows, he walks the walk. And that Sunday, I was there talking to him about, why these kids can't have money in their account. So this is great for everybody on the show here. People at a collective Social Security can have $2,000 in assets to their name, not money, complete assets. So ask yourself the question, what happens when the caregivers aren't there? You now have $2,000 to take care of this child or adult. It's just ridiculous. So it's like, why can't they have like a 401k or an IRA? It's like, excuse me. He's like, Brian, he goes, I'll get back to you. He goes, we're working on it right now. I gave him my card, and I literally walked away from the conversation like, that dude's never going to call me. The next day, someone from his office called me from Washington. I'll never forget it where I was. I went through the whole process, flash forward to about 4 years ago, and they now have ABLE accounts. It's called Achieving a Better Life Expectancy. And if you collect Social Security, you can now have $100,000 in your account if you're disabled. And if you're not collecting Social Security and disabled under letter of the law, you can have up to $300,000. So something has been done about that, which is just wonderful for these people. And then lastly, the Social Security piece of it is something that you really need to pay attention to. If anybody wants to take down notes or buy the book, it's in there. This is by far the most important thing that's in there. We live the Ozzie and Harriet lifestyle, meaning I am the breadwinner. She's the caregiver. And when Social Security comes calling in a few years, I'm 59. So I plan to take Social Security around 63, 4, 5. And what happens is she doesn't get a check because she hasn't worked long enough to accumulate the credits to get the check. Normally, this means that now you're going to get one check, which means that I'm probably going to have to work to 70 to get the max check. When I come home at night, I can see it in her eyes. She wants more help, and rightfully so. We're both getting older. Eric's not getting any lighter. You know what I mean? He's becoming more and more of a handful.
Right.
So what happens is when you have these two quantifiers. One is the child has to be disabled before the age of 18. And secondly, one of the two parents has to be the primary caregiver. You can do this. The government allows you to have a $4,000, what they call family monthly max. And how it works is if I retire, say at 65 with a $2,000 Social Security check, both Laurie and Derek can each get 50% of my check. So 1,000 for Laurie, 1,000 for Derek, my 2,000 gifted to the $4,000 family monthly max. Most people have a 401k or an IRA to their name. It's a pretty nice little stipend to fall back on now that you have $48,000 a year coming in from Social Security. So, I learned this by reading the Social Security Act, and that's what you do. You caretake, you research, and you try to find the best available options out there. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's so many great information, and it's true. A lot of people don't know what it's out there. Like somebody like me who's in a wheelchair, and I'm on disability, but I have to pay for a $40,000 wheelchair, and I need a motorized van with all adaptations so I can drive and I can get myself everywhere. But how do I maintain my van? How do I upkeep my wheelchair where, you need batteries every year, you need new wheels every year that's not covered by insurance when you can't have an account, where these able accounts are huge lifesavers. So you have something to fall back on because you're already poor and you have all of this equipment to take care of. There's no way to possibly do it. So you touch on a lot of very good points that people just don't realize. And like I said, if they end up like me and into this world, all of a sudden, you give them a good insight of where to look and what to do. Now, did you have a navigator to help you walk you through this, or did you have to do a lot of the research on your own with Derek?
Yeah, so again, hats off to the wife. It was definitely a collaborative effort here where she did a lot of research. Obviously, I was out working, making a living, and here she is. And then what she did is she started a lot of the research on her own to start the process with Derek when he was a kid. So in terms of Katie Beckett, which is in the book as well, Katie Beckett's a little strange because it's a state by state agency. So you have to actually contact your own state. There's no national agency for it. And then it just kind of migrated to like, well, this was in the book. Katie Beckett has helped us out tremendously in terms of, dollars coming in for medication. Because the medication for anti-seizure drugs is, really high. I mean, I think his medication bill for the year is probably close to $250,000, if you can believe it. And so I kind of took the ball and ran with it, where I did all this research on my own. And there's a lot out there. Once you get rolling with it and you can kind of stay focused on one thing, like the Able account, I was just like, are you kidding me? So during this book, I interviewed about probably 30 people for it to get their insights, to make sure that what we were going through was what the snapshot of a family was going through. And for the most part, after the second interview, I didn't really learn anything different after that. Everybody was in the same boat. We're all like, oh my God, what do we do now? Where's the book? Who's going to teach us how to do this, da, da, da. But I do want to touch back on one special thing with the Able account, because we kind of pull in inordinate amount of money from Medicaid and then eventually Medicare because of our situation and what I just said with prescription drugs. You tend to use a lot more of those funds. So what happens is when you have an Able account, when the child or the adult, when he passes, most states, that money goes back to Medicare. Not all. I think off the top of my head, I believe California, Pennsylvania, probably more of the progressive states, maybe even Massachusetts, will allow that money to be used for that child or other people in the family that may be handicapped. But that money does go back to Medicare. So it's literally like you want to have that last dollar spent on the last day that that person was alive, because otherwise you're going to lose the money. And myself, maybe it's because I'm an empathetic person. I don't have a problem with that because we use so many more of the resources for our tax dollars. I don't mind. Laurie is in a different boat, and neither one of us is right. It's just two separate, forms of thought
Right.
that around the subject. Yep. But yeah, to get back to the research part of it, Social Security, no one knew about that. In the 30 interviews, no one knew about it. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm onto something big here. That you could probably write a book on that alone. And so that is something that somebody should definitely take advantage of, especially lead trusts in there, or are in there, I should say. You can go awry very easily in a special needs trust. You need a very good lawyer to set one up, and there's multiple ways to do it. And that's in the book as well. And there's no reason to just go see one lawyer or take it from, well, my Uncle Jack knows what's going on. No, your Uncle Jack doesn't know what's going on. Get to a reputable lawyer, talk to someone. A lot of companies, myself included, I was recently employed by PepsiCo. They have a great law department. You can use that, and you can go on there and find a lawyer for next to nothing. So use your resources. And I think the lesson here is that you're so overwhelmed, like what my wife just said about the day-to-day things that happen. I mean, who wants to see the kid pass out? I mean, no one wants to see that. Convulsive seizures are not a thing that you want to take a look at, especially when you gave birth to the child and I'm the father of them. But you have to kind of put that aside and almost compartmentalize it and say, well, I need to focus on what's right for my son. And then again, the end of life situation is a whole different story. So I'll pause there for a minute, but we can get into that. But if you have any more questions about this, you can let me know right now.
What I want to know is I want to ask Laurie.
Well,
You found out at 6 months old that Derek was going to have this different way of living after that. How was the support from like the hospitals or doctors, or were there organizations that you were able to reach out for personal support for you dealing with this and trying to navigate at least the early stages?
that's a loaded question. My view of when we went to the hospital, I learned quickly that you need to speak up all the time. Help yourself if you need something and you know where it is, or you ask, hey, my son needs a blanket, where are the blankets, learn where the blankets are. Because they're so busy, honestly. I just learned, you go, you speak up, learn the hospital. They don't mind, or they didn't mind when I had to go, and just, help yourself and take care of your son.
Right.
That was a huge one. And as far as support, I had a lot of good friends and family around me. And when he went to early intervention, which was great because I don't even know how we got turned on to early intervention because he was only 3. Must have been the doctor's office that actually put me onto that. And I learned so much there because the parents of the kids that were there were in the same boat as I was, new, because the kids were like 3 to 5. And they were the ones that directed us to where the best placement would be after early intervention. Excuse me. And so we had ended up at Sargent Center in Warwick, and they were great. And they had some great team members who really walked you through. I learned so much. Walked you through processes of, getting guardianship, or, everyday life skills, learning how to like do laundry or fold clothes or cook or any of those skills. And they did have, not long enough, in my opinion, for a short time, a parent support group where the parents of the other kids that were in the school could come, and we used to get together and have coffee, and we would just talk. And that is huge for a parent that has a child with special needs, to know that you're not alone, and the thoughts that you're having and the feelings you're having are not wrong, and they're not unusual. Because they all love their kids.
True.
We all love our kids, but boy, you end up, there's a lot you're going through. There's a lot. So.
Right. Did you have any kind of like respite care or in-house care to give you a break during the day? Because, with Brian being the breadwinner and you being the sole provider, did you have like state respite care or any kind of like break for you during the day or help at home? Did they send somebody in like a nurse or somebody to help?
No, I didn't need any help until Derek turned 21. When the whole time he was in school, both my daughter and he were in school at the same time. So I had, from like 9 to 1 to myself. So I could do the cleaning, the shopping, the laundry, whatever I needed to do, or anything that I wanted to do for myself. I had time. So I really didn't need anyone then. When I picked him up, my day resumed. Fine, that's dandy.
Right.
But when he turned 21, the what do I want to call them? The outplacements where you can put your older, I keep calling him older child. He's a young man. For services during the day, they had new rules at the time, and so they weren't taking new clients because there was a new rule saying that there was 60-40 rule where 60 was in the community, 40 was in the center, and they weren't sure how they were going to meet that need with the people they had. So they were like, no, we can't take you. So we decided we didn't have really much of a choice on the options program where you do it. You hire, fire, organize, all that stuff. They come in your house and they are in your house with you during the day. And, if you need to leave or go to a different appointment, you can leave because they're here working with your adult.
Right.
So that's hard though, because it's hard to find help.
Work out? Yeah. Was it a big turnover? How did that work out for you?
Well, first of all, you're in my home, so I'm going to scrutinize who comes here. So really, I haven't had maybe a couple of people who I didn't know in my house, and I didn't leave my house. My son's nonverbal, so if I don't know you, I'm not leaving.
Right.
So, and they don't stay long because I don't have, you don't give benefits. And so that's tough. Some people have second jobs or, young kids, they're great. But again, they have school. And then once they go to college and get a job, then they're gone. Or you have an older person I've had where Derek passes out and you need to have a hand on him at all times. And some people are not comfortable doing that. So it's hard to keep help. Very hard. Hard to find it, hard to keep.
Can I piggyback after for a second, Tina? So something that's not in my book that came to light with this COVID nonsense that's happened is now it was hard to get people in the first place, as Laurie has said. It's doubly hard now. No one wants to go in your homes, and the homeowner doesn't want anybody that's been in 3 other homes, either earlier that week or possibly even that day.
Right.
So what's happening is now there's become an acute shortage of these people. So the government has relaxed the payment rules on this, where before, if you lived in the same address, you could not collect those benefits. So in other words, the options program she's talking about, they give you so much money to pay the OT and PT people to come in. And so those people aren't there anymore. So that money is still there funded. It's just you're not paying an OT or PT person come in because you can't find them. So now if you had a sibling that lived at the same address, or in Laurie's case, she obviously lives here with us and Derek, they can now get paid through the federal government because of COVID, which is a huge watch out. I'm not sure if everybody knows about this on the podcast or not, but it's definitely bears, repeating that you need to find out about this, because if you cannot find people, you can get paid, and that's just a godsend for people now.
Only through options.
Only through options, because there's 8 million people last time I checked are out of work or whatever. So that's something you definitely want to look into, because you might as well get paid to to try to help your child out and yourself.
Yeah, it's so true, because there's so many of my friends, a lot of my friends are disabled, you know what I mean? And they were having caregivers or personal care attendants coming in. And with COVID, you don't want somebody who's been in 4 or 5 other places or, out and about. I mean, my husband delivers oxygen in hospital beds to nursing homes and stuff like that. So we were even separated in our own home. Like, we could see each other. We were in the same home, but at quite of a distance, because you're dealing with the public and I'm staying home for my issues. So that's a great another option, because my son does me, you know what I mean? I mean, I'm pretty self-sufficient for the most part. And I have 2 service dogs, so I'm pretty self-sufficient on my own, but it's always nice to have that extra person or those extra hands when those things come up. So that's a great plus. I didn't realize that myself, that they could open it up to that. But I know there's so many people suffering right now because they're not getting the help in their own homes because they can't.
Right.
What are some other really important aspects of the book that you need people to know about?
So the end of life situation, which is it's difficult for anyone to talk about just on their own. No one wants to think about their mortality. No one wants to think about dying. And then now you have this super burden where what do you do when you're not here anymore with your child? Where does your child go? What happens to him? So if I could back it up where, pre these able accounts, yeah, $2,000, here's my kid. What do you think is going to happen to him? He's going in a home somewhere. And again, as I alluded to earlier, I give you a couple paths in the book to go by, right? Now, I don't feel comfortable asking my two other kids who would both be more than capable of taking care of him. I don't think that's a correct thing for me to assume that they can take this burden on. And it is an unbelievable burden for someone to take on, that your life would change. You're a perfect example of it. You just said you went in for an operation. You came out and obviously not expecting to be in a wheelchair, and this has changed your life. And, it's a burden to say, what am I going to do with my child when I'm not here anymore? So you try to do everything you possibly can to make that transition period easier. As I said, I'm 59. Maybe I got 20 years left, whatever the number is. My goal now, and I talk about it at length in the book, is that whatever things that you can do now that you're not going to have to pay for it twice, like put a roof on the house. I probably won't outlive the roof, right? Put the windows on the house. I probably won't outlive that either. That way, when whoever comes in here, this house is going to be, being able to be almost cost-free or very low maintenance to use. You want to make sure that the special needs trusts are up to date. Your will is up to date. Make sure that everybody is appointed in terms of powers of attorney. Not many people know that you can split up the powers of attorney. You can make one financial, you can make one medical. If you only have one sibling or one person, obviously they have to be one powers of attorney by themselves. But you want to take a look at that too. And then, I've actually been thinking about it. I haven't talked to you about it at all, but I've actually been thinking about it where, there's going to come a day when one of us isn't going to be here, and whoever's left, it's going to be a double burden on that person, because I depend on Laurie for a lot, and she depends on me for a lot. And so when one goes, and now of course, if it's 10 years down the road, whatever it might be, you're older. As I alluded to earlier, Derek is not getting any younger. He's not getting any lighter. He's not getting better. So we're still gonna have to do the things we have to do for him, and things get slower as you get older. So you have to be cognizant of what you need to do and really get your ducks in a row, and do whatever you can now to eliminate that fear and that trepidation in the future of something that you may not want to have to deal with when that time comes. So that's a very poignant chapter. It was very difficult for me to write. If I can digress a little bit, I lost my mom to early onset Alzheimer's. She was 52 when she was diagnosed. And of course, me being the power of attorney for medical, the time came for me to sign the DNR, the do not resuscitate. And I knew I was signing a death warrant. I knew it. But the little voice inside your head says it's the right thing to do. She's not getting better. There's no reason for her to suffer. It's those types of things that you got to you have to address. You can't go hide in a corner. They're there in front of you. They're going to be there tomorrow. They're going to be there the next day. They're going to be there after the beer you had today. They're going to be there after the coffee you had the next day. So you might also take care of them right now, eliminate it, get it off your plate, because the day-to-day life that we have, it's pretty filled. There's not much free time for either one of us, as you might imagine.
I mean, it's so important. I mean, for people to have a will in the first place, whether you're just an, as you say, normal, everyday person. But I mean, like I said, look at me. I mean, in 10 minutes, I ended up in a wheelchair. With this whole COVID, it could take either one of you at any given moment. You know what I mean? So when you have a child like this, it's something you have to be prepared for right now. It's not something you can say, I can wait till tomorrow, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to hold. Is this something that you've had to sit down with your whole family and discuss, or is it just you and Laurie discussing it? Or do you discuss it at all with Derek at all? Like, is he part of that process at all?
Yeah, so his capability mentally is just not there for him to understand. We don't think anyway. I mean, it's not shown. He struggles with day-to-day chores. He may understand. I'm not sure, but it's not something he could make a decision on. And we've danced around it with Haley, and my oldest son, we've talked to him about it, but it's going to be a decision. It's going to have to be set in stone fairly soon. We're going to be in a process next year probably of making a small extension on the back of our house to make handicapped accessible. It's another reason why I tell everybody to kind of think ahead. So my stuff downstairs for the washer and dryer is down cellar. It's already not fun me going downstairs and bringing it back up. We want to put everything on one level so that, again, whoever comes in there afterwards can be of ease. His handicapped accessibility obviously is easier if you don't have to go up and down stairs. The other option would be to put an elevator if that's not something that you would want to do, to put an extension on the same floor. There's multiple ways to go about it. But the other thing I'd like to go back to too is another very important part of the book is I should probably copyright or trademark this term. It's called the 50 dimensions of marriage. And what I mean by that is that in a regular lifestyle, you should probably do the 25 things that you're good at, right? And maybe the husband does the 25 things he's good at. That goes out the window when you have a special needs child. Okay, what happens is I might do 37 of those things when I come home one day. Laurie might do 40 of them the next day, and she might do 50 the day after that. But no one's keeping score. Whatever needs to get done gets done. I'm gonna frame it up with the best way I know how. So I'm in the backyard. I don't know, probably 10 years ago, and the lawnmower decides not to work anymore. I'm fairly well mechanically inclined. I couldn't get it going. I'm frustrated. I'm using swear words left and right. My neighbors probably hated me. I go to work the next day. It's Monday. I'm having that day. I'm about to become a serial killer, Tina. That day. It was that bad. It was awful. And I get a text from my wife. And I'm looking, I'm like, what does she want? You know what I mean? I'm having a bad day. It can't get any worse. Well, what I'm looking at is a video that Laurie had taken with greasy fingers, tools in her hand, saying, Laurie Small Engine Repair Shop at your service, and the mower's going. So this wasn't just your any day getting the mower going. She went down to the auto parts store and needed a carburetor rebuild kit. She got it. And she rebuilt the carburetor and put it back together. Now, maybe some guys might be mad at that because it challenges their manhood. You know what I mean? I don't care. I do the laundry in the house. I do the dishes. I clean up. She cooks. It doesn't matter. What needs to get done needs to get done, and nobody keeps score. And I can't tell you how important that is. We celebrated 30 years of marriage this past October, and the divorce rate for autism, or I'm sorry, couples who have an autistic child is north of 80%. And you can see why it's unbelievably difficult. So we're fortunate to have each other and know that there's going to be days where we're going to support each other more than what is, scalable, if you will. And there's going to be days where it comes back to help you out. So that's very important.
It's so true. Because I mean, I was married just a little over a year to my husband when I became disabled. I'm on my second marriage. He's on his first. So he had to, you know what I mean, go from a wife that he full of life and out and about and here, there, and everywhere to now navigating the world from a wheelchair. And you're right. What has to get done has to get done. I'm the fixer. I'm the one who's swinging the sledgehammer at the Habitat House while he's delivering oxygen in hospital beds and doing the work, you know what I mean, bringing in the money. You do what you have to do and you adapt. And, more people need to realize that should be in a regular marriage. You know what I mean? You do what you can do at the moment. And when you get frustrated, the other one to step up and step in and take over sometimes just to give somebody some peace of mind. You know what I mean? It is what it is. He'll come home after a hot day and he'll do all of the cooking and I'll just sit on the couch going, I can't move anymore. I'm done. I'm just done, And it
Yep.
is what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good point. You got to.
Yeah, so I mean, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, so with the 50 dimensions, just to kind of finish up with all of that, if you can kind of take that from what it is now, and it's going to change from now till then, you can't kind of dwell on what it used to be. And then the other thing I want to get back to too that you brought up before is Laurie support services. So we made a pact a long time ago. It's probably going on 10 years now, maybe. She's not allowed in the house on Saturday, my wife. So what I mean by that is I kick her out. I'm like, get out. Don't be a mom. Don't be a husband. Just go out and be a friend and talk to normal, regular people and have a conversation. And for the most part, she's been following along and doing it. And, sometimes it's hard for her to leave because she's so joined at the hip with Derek. And you're going to be because, the one thing with having a special needs child is what? The amount of love you give is completely commensurate with the bond you form. There's zero question about it. I mean,
Right.
not to be crude about it, when you're in the bathroom, you're wiping somebody's bum for them, even at the age of 26 years old, or using Q-tips or shaving them every day like he does and feeding them. I mean, that's high level care, and you have to do it, and you're going to form that bond with someone. So it's time and have a good time and go see a
Right.
movie, go be with your friends, have 2 or 3 martinis. I don't care if you sleep over your friend's house because you had 5 or 6. I don't care. Just go out and have some fun. And what's it do for me and Derek?
Right.
We sit there and we'll watch a college football game or something. So we end up on our own too. And I get a taste of what she goes through every day, which is, not fun.
Right.
But she does it. She does it with a smile on her face. And it's remarkable what we've been through. It's a great journey. And I'm glad to be with her, man. I couldn't have done this by myself. No question about it.
I mean, the thing is, though, is you're Derek's caregiver, but if you're not taking care of you mentally, physically, spiritually, you're no good to Derek. So you know what I mean? The best way to take care of Derek is to take care of you. Because like I said, if you're not there right in the head, right in the mind, right spiritually, you're just going to get frustrated and you're going to take it out on Derek. And you see, unfortunately, that's for so many families who don't have the support or don't have that way of taking care of themselves. They do. They ended up taking it out on the child. They don't mean to. It's just they're frustrated. They don't have any other outlet. They don't have any way of doing it. So I think that's wonderful what you guys do. You're such great parents. And like I said, Derek's just such a handsome young man. And this book definitely has to be bought and read by everybody. Tell everybody how they can get the book, Brian.
So a couple different ways you can get it. You can go on Amazon and just do the search bar and type in a lifetime of lessons from the parent of a special needs child. You can type in my name, Brian Wilk, W-I-L-K. There's the cover. Thank you, Tina. It'll show it on there. And then it's also on Barnes & Noble. You can also get it for your e-reader on both sites. And then if you want to email me directly, I can also mail a book out to you if you'd like to do it that way. My email address is Brian Wilk, BrianWilk, the digits 61 at gmail.com. And if anybody wants to drop me a line to talk about, and share about their struggles or to expand on some other points, drop me a line. I will get to the email. There's no question about it. It may be to the weekend, but I answer all emails I get diligently. Working for a Fortune 500 company definitely taught me that you get back to everybody. And I have zero problems rather answering anybody's questions. And I want to kind of segue into what you did with the self-care. There's a chapter on self-care in there as well. You hit on such a topical point that one of my favorite sayings is you can't you can't pour from an empty cup, right? I mean, you got to be there physically, you got to be there spiritually, you got to be there mentally for your kids, and don't be afraid to go see someone about it. If your therapy is hanging out with your buddies and having a good time, and that works for you, go do that. If you can't handle it on your own, it doesn't mean you're a weak person, and it doesn't mean that you're stupid or that you don't have any self-identity. What it means is that you should be going to see a therapist. Laurie's been, I've been, I have no problems saying that I've been. I'll go again tomorrow if I feel I need it. It helps you out because you are carrying an albatross in a hat. Sometimes you forget that, and you have to take care of yourself and treat yourself. Go get a banana split. I'm an ice cream freak. That's what satisfies me. I dive into a plane of Ben and Jerry's and I'm okay after that. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. So that's my little slice of heaven. And you got to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. You said it so eloquently before. So yeah, thank you for the time, Tina. You've been an absolute instrument for getting this information out to these people.
But you also have to realize that it's okay to go in your bedroom and scream and cry and get it out and be frustrated. You know what I mean? I got all upset one day because I wanted a piece of chocolate cake, and by the time I got to it, the chocolate cake was stale, and that chocolate cake ended up all over my driveway and everywhere. I just threw the chocolate cake, but I felt better when I was done. And I'm not crazy. I just had that stressful moment that you got to let out, and it's okay. And then you go see somebody and you get your head straight and you take care of yourself and you have your ice cream or your chocolate cake and you feel better. People need to know it's okay to have those breakdowns. It's okay to be mad at the trajectory of the way your life has gone. But God has led you for a reason. God put me in this wheelchair for a reason. I 100% believe that he put me in this wheelchair to advocate for other people, because My
Yeah.
legs don't work. My mouth sure doesn't. I'm good at working my mouth. So it's all good. You know what I mean? You have to go with your strong suits. And I can talk the ear off of anybody. So, go with your strong suits, but it's okay to have those breakdowns. But I'll tell you, like I said, I read this book and it was great. And I believe everybody should definitely read this book. Give your email address again, Brian.
Sure, it's Brian Wilk 61, BrianWilk, the digits 61 at gmail.com.
I have also tagged you in this podcast, so anybody can find you on Facebook by just clicking your name, because I've tagged you in it, so it will go right to your page, so they can contact you that way. But also, you guys are red bag carriers, because you all know about my red bag carrier movement, about carrying all of your medical information on you at all times. It's non-tech based, so no matter if there's a power outage, a snowstorm, which we're all getting tonight, or a hurricane or anything, your medical needs and your medical information is on you at all times, and no one knows about it but the doctors and the EMTs that take care of you. I also want to wish everybody very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is you happen to celebrate this time of year. Make sure you celebrate the small stuff. It's 2020. There is always something to be grateful for. There is always a reason to have a blessing. There's always something. I am grateful every day my eyes open. As a 4-time cancer survivor who now uses a wheelchair, I'm grateful that my eyes open every day. And I know you guys are very grateful for Derek and the love and the relationship that you two
Absolutely.
have. And we are all so grateful for you writing this book, because this book is amazing. And here's my copy right here. And I will be making sure I put it out there to everybody. But thank you so much for taking the time tonight to spread your message and to share your book with everybody. And I just want to say happy holidays, and make sure everybody goes on. What is it? Give us how you can get the book again, Brian.
So you can go on Amazon, you can go on Barnes and Noble for print, and you can also get the e-readers on both Amazon and Barnes and Noble, the Nook and the Kindle. And you can go to Brian Wilk, BrianWilk 61 at gmail.com. And send me any queries you want, and I'll answer them if there's something you're unclear on. I'll research it for you and get back to you, I promise. So thank you once again, Tina, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you and your family.
you,
And
Tina.
you've done a wonderful thing here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And hopefully there'll be a second edition to this book with all of the new information that you found out since the book has been finished. So hopefully there's a part 2 to this, because there's always stuff changing and there's always stuff we need to know. So if you need help with a part 2, let me know. And I am definitely in on helping you out and getting the story out there and making sure everybody has the information that they need. So thank you very much. Happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Thank you. Merry
Good
Christmas.
night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.